And once more, people, here we are back with Kerbal Space Program. Eve. So, what can we do to get to Eve? The mission is get there, orbit, and come home. Doesn't have to be a manned craft, which is the interesting bit. So, what have we got here? Not that one. I want that one at 300. And the reason I want that, there's a big communications dish, which is quite nice. There's a ground comms dish, which is also quite nice. Another experiment we can put on the ground. And some more experiments we can do in space. And then it's a toss-up with some other bits and pieces. We can have an advanced probe, which is quite nice. There's some more scanning and science bits and pieces. Wheels, which we can't do yet. Because we need that, I believe. Can't do that because we haven't got it. Composites, which is just more building bits. Advanced bits and pieces I don't really need. Massive fuel tanks. And the one I'm actually going for, which is the nuclear engine. And that gives us basically the gateway to anywhere we want to go. So, the question is, are we going to go manned or unmanned? Now, if we go unmanned, we need something that can come back, survive re-entry, and all this sort of stuff. I'm thinking a manned flight. Although, possibly, yeah, I'd like more than one Kerbal. This big command pod is huge, but works for this sort of thing. We do not need a docking pod on this one because this is strictly an out and back. This is not intended to be anything fancy. We're not trying to make this thing reusable. We are going to orbit of Eve and then we are coming home. So I need that. I do not need to carry the monopropellant because we won't be docking to anything. Thermal, big heat shield, yes, we are going to be coming back quite quickly, so I'm going to leave that at about half. That should do. Right, this is how we're going to come back, and this thing is going to be Eve Orbiter. So, who's going? Matters as well. Val's not been out for a bit. We'll let Val take this one, and we'll bring the gruesome twosome with us because you never know, they might prove useful for something eventually. Right, so that's the lander. What we now need is the craft to get there, and this thing's job is we are in orbit. We need to come home. So what do we need to get home? We need, very roughly, from Eve orbit to get back to Kerbin, probably about 1,000 delta V. That'll get us in, and then we can aero brake when we get back. What I'm thinking of doing is having a craft that can drop some empty fuel tanks off. Basically, I'm thinking of having a ship that can get there and get back using nuclear engines is what I'm thinking. So, but this next section here needs a little bit of structure to it. So we are going to go with where is it? I want the payload. Here we are. I want a 2.5 meter service bay. Because I can put all the science load out in here. Essentially, is the idea. In fact, I'm going to take that. I'm going to rotate it like that. This is to make getting down into it a little bit easier. So, science kit. We need one of those, because of course we need one of those. No, I didn't buy the seismometer. There's no point bringing, because we're not going to the surface. However, I'm going to buy all those bits. The barometer, yes, we want that. Daft as it may be, we want the barometer. In fact, actually, let's just zoom in a bit more here. So we want a barometer. Let me just pick that up. I want a barometer, I want a thermometer. Which, again, needs to be the right way up. And this thing fits onto the side, but it's not going to go onto the side there. So that is the science loadout. We are going to carry a couple of batteries in here as well. Is that right? That's not right. They're going like that. So there we are. Batteries. That's the science kit loaded, apart from the big bit. So what we now need is structural, and I want actually a fuel tank at this point. And do we have the one I want? Possible that's the one I want. I'm not sure. No, not that one. Not that one. That one. That one. But what I'm going to do is remove all the oxidizer from it. We don't need that. And now we can say put a nervous engine on the back of it and set that to be vacuum. And that's 1500. Just that. So what I'm actually going to do is drag that down. I'm going to get rid of that. And we want a bigger fuel tank. Now, the problem with the fuel tanks is there's only actually one liquid fuel tank. So we're going to do that. Now that, I mean that there, 3000 odd. So in theory, from Kerb in orbit, that'll get us to Eve and get us back again. What it won't do is get us into a particularly nice orbit of Eve. So what I'm going to do is put a cluster of 3 of those there, like that. That most certainly will get us where we need to get to. Right, structural. This thing's going to have a fairing around it before it goes anywhere, which seems like a fairly good idea. So that can go up to there like that. Right. Electrical. We want some solar panels. Of course, we're going to need them. Communications wise, we have got these large dishes. Now these are pretty big and pretty pokey. We should, however, now be alright with just one of those. Now we've upgraded the ground station, and also because, to be blunt, we're bringing it home. we're flying back anyway. So communications, electrical. We've got the science kit. I am going to go in with a couple more struts. Just for the look of it as much as anything else, actually. That. And there we are. That is our Eve orbiter. Yeah, 5,500 delta V. That thing can get most places we're likely to want to go. So what we now need to do is stick a stack separator under it. We need to put, I mean, how heavy is that so far? 20 tons. It's not actually that heavy either. We're going to go with below that we need fuel tank, because this now needs the needs a lift stage. This thing can get itself to Eve. I'm fairly confident of that. So what we need now is something that can handle it Not that. I need the... Where are we? Payload. I need one of these. And the reason I have one of these is because the chances of this thing getting to space as it is fairly remote. Right. That's there. We're now going to come in with some more struts because I can see them being needed. So I'm going to go from there, not there, sorry. I'm going to go from... oh, stop it. Stop it. Don't want to... Right. Let him off. That back there, and that's going to go up to there as well. Right. That should work. We've now just got to get it into space. So give that a skipper. So what's that going to do? That's... If I set that as sort of mid-altitude, it's about... yeah, so that's about half, in theory, what we need. Another one of those. And... one of those. Where are we? Another fuel tank. One of those. And one of those. And then we're going to see what we've got. That should just about be enough to get us to where we're going. Show all. Thrust weight off the pad is just about enough as well. However, because I don't want to be doing this twice, I'm going to give it a couple of little boosters. Not massive ones. I don't think it needs a huge jump in performance at this point. This is really about helping get it off the pad. We'll go with a reliance on there. That'll fire at the same time as those. That'll fire at the same time as that. That'll fire at the same time as that. Okay, show all. What have we got? Thruster weight 2 off the pad. So sea level. So that gives us about 1,000. Yeah, that should be enough. Should be enough. Should. Honest. Should. Yeah, we'll see. Right. So again, a few more struts. I've spaced the boosters off a little bit this time. Just for variation, really. No other real reason for it. I just thought it might look good. So I'll do that to there like so. We then want the launch clamps, which are going to go onto the main bodywork. So, check staging. Core engines will fire. Boosters will jettison. Upper stage will fire. Fairing, which will probably end up triggering manually, and then everything else. Okay, built. Let's fly. Now I'm going to get this thing into orbit, and then I'm going to work out and get us round to the appropriate liftoff point. So there we are. That's that. That's that. That's that. Full throttle. Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? I'll see you in orbit, hopefully. So there we are, in orbit on atomic power. Woohoo! Right, so what we now need to do is actually go back to the Space Centre and find out where and when and what have you we need to get to. So again, we can do a little bit of tidying up. Back into here, because we are doing just one mission today at this point. So again, see, now we start seeing all sorts of asteroids and things. Ooh, we can actually talk to the satellite that's there. Right, now we are at completely the wrong position, so we have a very weak signal to the satellite we actually put in Eve orbit. See, this is because we've upgraded the ground tracking station. Dropping a proper communications relays. I mean, it's like even Duna going there, Dual and what have you. When you eventually get round to it, you start looking at it and thinking, you know what? What we need to do here is put a proper comms relay. And you go out with all sorts of stuff. Look at these. These are all asteroids, comets and things like that. You can go and visit them. I've never done it. Doesn't really tell you what they are until you get close to them. But yeah. So again, we're going to try and get this angle about right. Now it matters a bit more this time. Basically because the better angle we can get, the better off we are in terms of fuel usage. Because don't forget, we have to get into orbit down there. It's not just go there. It doesn't have to be a close orbit or anything weird like that. I forgot to put the magnetometer thing on it. No, too late now. It's just another science experiment, but you can run it in... you run it in space when your engines are not running. Okay. What I'm now going to do is fly. Where are we? Eve orbiter, that's the one I want. Let's go to Eve. I've not been to Eve properly in years. Right, so where is... Right, the sun's that way, so we want to go inwards, which, if I remember rightly from last time, means we go there. There's our manoeuvre. Wasn't quite what I wanted to do. Never mind, pressed the wrong thing. Add manoeuvre, like that. And this should see our orbit go far too far inwards, in fact, actually off that, wasn't it? Right, Eve as target should help a little bit. Delete that manoeuvre node and start again. Right. Now, not warp there. I want to add a manoeuvre. Right. So we have the manoeuvre. With the aim of going inwards a little bit towards Eve, like so. We're not far off in terms of the nodes. What we need to do is play with it and see if we can get an encounter. Well, I need to be able to get at all four of the... Sorry, all six of the things without hitting that blasted alarm clock. Ooh. Close. Not quite. You see, we're getting near. Oh, nearly. There we are. That gives us an Eve encounter. Using 1,200, so a bit more than it should be. It's not the ideal encounter. It's not bad, but it's not an ideal one. However, it's where we're going. I think we've got the fuel to do this, so we're going to do it. I'm going to commit various kerbals to the heavens for a number of years. So it takes us to there like that. One thing I have realised I forgot to put on this thing is radiators. So I'm going to do this from here because I want to keep an eye on the engine if the engine gets rather hot. Now, see what I mean when I said earlier about you end up thrusting towards Kerbin. I should be high enough at this point, it's not really a problem. Right, we have a 6-minute burn. So I'm going to do that and fast forward. And I will catch you when, hopefully, we have got an encounter and we are on our way. There we are. We are on our way to Eve. So, let's go there. Now, in theory, I can do more science in deep space here because I can collect it. So, actually, let's do that. Because I can collect it, let's put the thing nicely vertical. See, but this is the beauty of having a scientist on board. I can collect all of this and take it home. So I can do that. I can do that. And see, this isn't really worth anything if we transmit it. However, if we collect it, it is. So what I then do is say, Mr. Scientist, you can go outside. You can grab hold of an EVA report while you're here. You can climb down a little bit, because hopefully... Yeah, well, never mind. Right, so let go. Jetpack on, and forwards a tad. Collect data, remove data, and that. Take data, that, take data, that, restore. Somewhere there's a goo pod, I think. I didn't put the goo pod on. Yeah, never mind. So, back a little bit, and then up a little bit. That way, forward a little bit. Down. Down that way. Grab. Get back on board. There we go. Close the payload bay doors. So we've just done all that now. We'll capture that and we'll take that home. We're now going to warp around here. Yes, and as I said, as you saw, a lot of that science wasn't really worth anything if we transmitted it. It's pretty good if we actually take it all the way back, though. So we'll take it all the way back. What have we got up here? World's first milestone. Spacewalk in orbit of the sun. So we just got paid a bit of money for doing nothing, basically. Something I was going to do anyway, and we got paid for it. Now I'm quite happy with that. So in we come here. We're approaching Eve nicely now. So what we're going to do is warp into Eve space. Now we're quite low down. You see, this is I could almost actually done with doing a bit of a correction on this, but it almost doesn't matter. So see, here we are like this. Now we need to get into Eve orbit. So Eve orbit is not that. I don't really like that, because we don't need to be. It's only got to be Eve orbit. It doesn't have to be a close Eve orbit, you see. So we do that. So yeah, 1600. Another 6-minute burn. It will be a retrograde burn, I know that much. We'll do the science. We're going to be doing it high over Eve rather than low. We are picking up more science still gradually from our deployed experiments. We do still have contact with the Space Centre. Just about. The antenna we've got's okay. Their base station one's rather good, but we've ours is basic. So it's another 6-minute burn. Well, 6 minutes 45 seconds. So 3 minutes 20 odd is the point it needs to be done at. Yeah, near enough. Like I say, we're only really going for a basic orbit. So Eve is either above us or below us somewhere. Oh, there we are. Eve. Well, welcome to Eve. Grab a picture of that. Why not? Yeah, we're nowhere near. I could make the orbit quite a lot lower. I mean, we've got quite a bit. You see, there's the possibility here of saying I'll do science high above, and go in and do science near, and then go home and take it all. Doesn't really leave much for the next mission, however, so I'm going to leave off on that. We'll grab some. By the time we get back, we'll probably have another 500 odd available from the station orbiting Minmus, and then we really will have to go and do that rescue of so-and-so around the Mun mission we've had for ages. Because we'll be running out of time on those fairly soon if we don't. But there we go. Again, you see, here's Gilly. Not that easy to get to in many ways. Its sphere of influence is very small, so you've got to be quite accurate getting there. And a Kerbal can go from the surface to orbit using his jetpack, so you don't need a huge amount of fuel there. In fact, actually landing on Gilly can be quite difficult because the gravity is so low. It becomes more like you're flying into it rather than trying to land on it. So yes. Anyway, I will be back in a minute once this thing is in orbit, and we will do a bit of science, and then we will get ready to go home. Okay, here we are in Eve orbit, as witnessed nicely by the fact this thing says we have orbited Eve. Now, we haven't gathered any science data there yet, but we soon will. So, should go back to put the spaceship the right way up. In the end, the rocket's not overheated at all, which I'm actually quite pleased with. Right, okay, so I'm now going to... Basically, I'm going to position this thing so that it's easier to get the EVA stuff done. Right, what have we got? Open that. conduct the materials study again, because we need to do that. Pressure data, and well, we need to do that. We have in theory already done bits of this, however, because we never managed to get out properly and beam it home, we've not been able to do it. So he's going to grab all of that. He's then going to do an EVA report. And down a little bit down here like so. Then going to let go. Rocket pack on. Down a little bit. Forwards a little bit. And up a little bit. So we're now going to come into here. I'm going to collect all of that. Remove. Might as well restore it while I'm at it. Take data. That one. Take data. And back a little. That way. Drift up a bit. Forwards a little. Up a bit. Grab hold of that. Board. There we go. Should now be able to do a crew report, which we can do as well. We'll do that. Right. That is basically the mission done. Now what we have to do is go home. Now, I can't remember the ideal angle for doing that. I'm willing to bet it's not right now, however. So I'm just going to have a quick look up of what angle to use when I'm going home, and I shall be back. Right, a quick search says Eve needs to be about 35 or so degrees ahead. So it's currently quite a bit more than that, so we'll have to go around a bit further. Practically a whole year, which makes sense. I mean, a lot of the if you start listening to some of what SpaceX is saying about going to Mars, you go out there, there's like a launch window. I think they're about every 18 months, every 2 years. The return window isn't immediate, so when you get out there, you are out there a while, and then you can come home. So actually we need to, right, Kerbin has to be ahead. So if we do that, and keep an eye on it. You're out of comms net again. Once you start getting satellites around some of the planets, you're very seldom out of communications. Unknown objects flying around. I might have to go to one at some point. I've never been to one. You get missions, contracts I've seen to go and go find a class whatever asteroid and bring it back, including rather disturbingly landing on it. Rather landing the asteroid, which is a bit. So that's about 90 degrees. We need it to be about 35. So wait until we get near 45 and then have a think. So if we're at 3 o'clock, we want that to be probably about there. I reckon, yeah, 45's out there, so that's about that. Right, so what we now need to do is go home. Now I'm fairly sure getting out of Eve orbit is fairly straightforward. There we are, that's out of Eve orbit. That is, however, going the wrong way. So, do it at the other side. This is bringing us back. I want to make sure, first off, actually, I need to make sure I set. I need to make sure. Give me strength. Right. Kerbin set as target. There we are. The reason for setting Kerbin as the target is so that I can get the close approach markers and stuff like that to show up. And that's now using far more fuel, too much fuel. That is faintly ridiculous. We don't need to be anything like that much. So grab hold of this. There we are. So play about with the phasing angles and stuff, and we're right. I need to reduce significantly the amount of fuel we're going to use. Basically because I need to make sure we don't use more fuel than we've got, which is quite nice. I'll drag this around here a bit more. Yeah, so you don't need anything like that much. Just so I'm trying to get at the thing I'm trying to do here. Right, see that's nowhere. I have a horrible feeling when I was dragging one of these, I was dragging the wrong one. So I need to get that to go out here. Like that. And then right, cancel that. Try that again. Let's try there. Do that. Right. Do. Yeah, you see that's crazy. We don't do anything like as much of that. Get that again. So I'm just trying to find basically find the spot on the orbit that's the sweet spot for doing what I need it to do. Yeah. Not out to curb in orbit yet. Hopefully it will be shortly. There we are. Right, now. But it's not giving me an encounter. Okay, so... And the usual bit you do is you play with the various adjusters until... you get the encounter. Right. See, this should not be anything like as difficult as it currently is. I rather suspect the problem is because of the orbital inclination I'm in. If I was more equatorial, this would be a lot easier. What I need to do is go that way. Right. I try that. Right. Try that and burn that way. Nope. that one. Nope. Right. Seems to be my own fault for being in a completely screwy orbit. Right, let's do that. Right, okay, let me just think about this. Add maneuver. What I need to do is probably one of the two purple ones, because I need to burn. Try that one. Out to an extreme level. Aha! There we are. See, I've now got a closest approach. So I just need to play with a little bit. See, once you've got it, you play with it. Right, there. So if I do... It's basically... Go away. Think. Right. Now, if I set that, that tells me the closest approach separation. So that's getting larger. Right. That's a Kerbal encounter. That will do. And when I'm part way out, I will do an adjustment burn to make it a capture position. Yes. So anyway. Never mind. Right, warp to that. Yeah, note to self, getting yourself into a more equatorial orbit, life is much, much simpler. And to be honest, on this mission I could have done that as well. All I needed to do was do a correction burn at some point a little while after we left Kerbin's orbit. Kerbin's sphere of influence. And just played with it a little bit to adjust the encounter. So, yes, so this is going to take 4 minutes, 8 seconds. So, T minus 2 minutes. Well, do us 2 minutes, 4 seconds, and we should be alright. As long as we get the Kerbal encounter, I can cope with it. Because then, if I do the adjustment fairly early on, we can get back to Kerbin's atmosphere. And Kerbin's atmosphere we can use as a brake. So, yeah. Not perfect, but we can use it as a brake. So, I shall get this manoeuvre done, and then we'll be back. So yeah, that got us the encounter. What we're now going to do is come out here, safely away from Eve. I'm going to go in, I'm going to add a manoeuvre a little bit ahead. About there will do. I'm then going to focus back on Kerbin, which is in here somewhere. I don't want that. I want Kerbin, focus Kerbin. And the reason for focusing on Kerbin is I can now make little adjustments to this manoeuvre. And see what they do. So if I do manoeuvre again, so if I go into that and go 1, see we're no longer in orbit, so 0.01. Manoeuvre 0.1. Oh! Bugger off. So it's keyboard shortcuts doing things for me that I don't like. No, -1. Ah, right, you see. Now we're getting somewhere. -5? Nope, -3. And you see, this is going to get us closer. Now, I'm actually quite happy to come in a polar orientation like this. 5? Nope. -20. -50. -100. -5. There we are, back over there again. 5. See, that brings us nicely underneath. And then what I need to do is see if I get there, what is it going to cost me to break into Kerb in orbit? Maneuver 1. That one. Maneuver 2. Way more than I've got. So we will cancel. That maneuver will be canned. Alright. Okay, maneuver 2. How do I delete it? I want to. Let me. Maneuver 1. Maneuver 2. Delete. Right, there we are. Back into maneuver 1. What I need to do now is make this. Yeah, -6. Nope. -5. What I need to do here is get this into the atmosphere. Over there like that. -125. Nope. -165. Nope. Back into the maneuver again. -5.5. No. -4. Okay, that one. That's the main bit. So that is then -175. -200 do. That puts us over there. I'm going to take that and then I'm going to do another maneuver in a bit. So that one puts me back on what I'm supposed to be on. So yes, I have to be a little bit careful. Then 1400 fuel left over. That breaking into orbit maneuver wasn't going to work. What I was thinking is if I could break into orbit with a low periapsis, I can then aerobrake it in nicely from there, but apparently not. So what we're going to do is go back to focusing on Kerbin, because what I'm watching here is this orange line is going to become this purple line. Basically, is the idea. 40 seconds roughly, so -20, and then we'll do it from there. See, the goal here is I want to try and get into the atmosphere, because I can let the atmosphere do most of the work for me when it comes to braking, which will save an awful lot of fuel. Okay, that's that. It'll do. Right. Back to that, back to the map view, back to that, back to the ship. And what we'll do is another manoeuvre here. Again, the idea is focusing on curbing again. So this is where we now are. So what I need to do now is same again, basically. What happens if I start tweaking this? Don't want to adjust that one, obviously. 10. See, that gets me there, which is quite nice. And 1 on that. That takes me way out. I don't want to do that. 0. So minus that. Ooh, see, now we're starting to get somewhere. I mean, it's still way, way too high, but minus 0.6. 7. Crunch, don't want to do that. Minus 0.65. Minus 0.65. Keyboard working. 90. See, that's reasonable, and then what I can do there is I can adjust that a little bit more. Basically, when I get into curbing thing, I can fine-tune that quite nicely. And that's a fairly small amount of manoeuvring needed. Basically, the further away you are from the body you're aiming at, the easier it is to make your manoeuvre. So again, warp to that. This is a very, very small burn. It's quite pretty looking at all those satellites zooming around. I say you can turn them off, but I like to look at that. That's nice. Quite why this doesn't use the higher warp speed, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, back in a minute. And that's pretty much what I'm expecting and wanting to do. So what I'm now going to do is warp to there and go back to the ship. It's going to take us around. Yes, I very much am going to have to go and jump onto some of those other missions. This is the problem with the interplanetary stuff. It does take a while. There is the alarm clock function. There's also a Kerbal alarm clock mod, which is a little bit better. Basically, you can just say, this mission is going to take me 3 years. Remind me about it in 2 years, 9 months, or something like that. What has that just... We're on the way out. It's just... Oh! Ooh. Right. Literally what it's just done is walk me right past where I wanted to be. That is incredibly irritating. Right. Because now... basically these kerbals are dead. I mean, I can burn every bit of fuel I've got, and I'm... Or are we coming in still? Hey, what? Which way are we? Are we still coming in, or are we still... Yeah, Yeah, this is annoying. What this basically means is all these poor little buggers on this thing are going to need rescuing. Somebody's going to have to come out here and go and get them. Right, so where are they going to end up, which is perhaps the most important bit here. They're going to end up out by Duna somewhere. What I'm probably going to have to do is try... Right. See, this is the frustrating thing about this blasted time warp. You tell it where you want it to warp to, and it decides it's going to do something completely different. And the question is, have I got the fuel? See, what I was thinking is, have I got the fuel to get myself basically another encounter? There may be a rescue mission in the near future. And that was going to work. That was, I mean, quite how that didn't... I mean, that was supposed to go to within 30 kilometres of Kerbin's surface, so quite how that got past. And you're supposed to slow down on the warp when you change sphere of influence. So, yeah. Okay, what else could I do? What happens if I do that? Nothing of any use, so get rid of that. Get rid of that. I'm just trying to see if there's anything I can do which is going to get me back into the Kerbin system. Oh, that one. Yeah. Just rotating a little bit. Braking. Yeah, I mean... I mean, that's a nearer orbit at least. There's always the possibility I'm going to get another Kerbin encounter, you see. If I can keep the orbit crossing Kerbin. Right. I mean, I'm not... yeah. Okay, we're going to do that. It's a slightly rounder orbit. Oh, you give me strength. There's a little bit more chance of this working. So, yeah. Yeah, just... Yeah. Yes. So anyway, this is me later, as I've sort of sped a few things up here while I was sort of desperately just clicking buttons at random trying to work out what on earth to do. Yeah, as the graphic said earlier, are you really a Kerbal player if you haven't stranded a bunch of Kerbals somewhere you've had to then later go and rescue them from? Yes, so the next episode of this one I'm going to require a little bit of thought about, because I need to I need to think about what on earth to do. Yeah, I mean, this is just completely... I just wasn't paying attention at this point, and I was starting to adjust orbits based on something I thought I needed, and then it found out I didn't need, and I was like, yeah, whatever. So, yes. Anyway, this is this episode, coming to a close fairly shortly. What I'm then going to do is have a think, and the next episode... is going to be a rescue mission, which originally I thought to myself, I need to launch this soon because they've only just left orbit. And then I realised they're out beyond Duna now. So yeah, I need to think about how to do a deep space rescue mission now. So yes, I'm really starting to regret not putting a docking port on this thing, because I could have just sent some sort of tanker out, refueled it, and brought it home under its own power. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go and have a quiet little cry somewhere, and then yeah, I'll catch you in the next one anyway. Yeah. I love this game. I just hate my inability to play it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Certainly more than the little gang up there are going to enjoy the rest of theirs. But I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.